Life, I'm Damilola Ogunshaki. Of course, it's a beautiful morning here in Lagos. My name is Damilola. Let's move straight to the front pages of the daily, and I'm starting with Vanguard. Vanguard this morning is leading with special reports. Out of school children hits 20 million as poverty, insecurity worsens. Sad, British lives of 20 million out of school children. Kids into alcohol, hard drugs, smoking. Situation escalated in South states. Government passed bulk and highlight measures to tackle menace in some states. Most street children in rivers cross river from north. You can see that story on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. And on page 10, we have second anniversary. Police tear gas hashtag EndSARS protesters at Lekki Toll Gate. On page 8, we have $176 billion modernization project stalled as promoters battle federal government and customs in courts. Still on 8, we have Truss resigns as United Kingdom Prime Minister after 45 days in office. Customs boss worries over meeting 3 trillion naira revenue targets. Politicians will find it difficult to rig 2023 elections. That's coming from IGINI. On page 6, we have Interpol arrest over 70 suspected fraudsters linked to Black Axe court in Nigeria. Stories above. On page 9, we have We're under attack, Labour Party chairman cries out. Alleged fraud, ex-Lagos State Attorney General Shashaw arraigned, granted 50 million naira bail. Kogi receives first derivation allocation as oil-producing states. NDDC interim administrator Buhari sacks Aqua as Audu takes over. You can see that on page 12. And lastly, on the front page of Vanguard, we have CBN Amcom sell Polaris Bank to SCIL at 50 billion naira. And of course, that's all on Vanguard. Let's move straight to the Nation. On the front page of the Nation, we have federal government halts deduction of CBN's loans to states. NEC raises panel to review budget support repayment terms. You can see that on page 6. United States plans $1 million humanitarian aid for flood victims. APC presidential aspirant back Tinubu, says Adamu. Stage set for campaign council launch. Candidate unveils action plan today. Federal government won't tolerate strikes during transition period in Gige 1's unions. You can see that on page 2. Stories above, we have Stop Your Blackmail. Speakers tell Omoagege. Lastly, on the front page of the Nation, we have NDDC gets acting MD board. And of course, that's all on Nation. Now let's move straight to the Punch newspaper. The Punch this morning is leading with 10.7 trillion naira budget deficit. Government may sell TBS, NIPPS, 25 key assets. No bidders yet. We have register of asset that's coming from BPE. Federal government eyeing NNPC, value estimated at over 30 trillion naira. Government must be transparent in sale process, says expert. EndSARS, youth demand justice, police tear gas protesters. You can see that on page 47. 13 die in Ogun, Lagos crashes. FRSC blames 9 travel. You can see that on pages 4 and 5. Inflation, Nigeria others risk political instability, says IMF. You can see that on page 31. Stories above. We have Amcon sells Polaris Bank 50 billion naira. You can see that on page 33. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we have Kano, a flight risk, federal government tells Supreme Court. And that's all on Punch. Now let's move straight to The Guardian. And The Guardian this morning is leading with Nigeria Air reaves on excess budgets, doubtful partnership model. Only Ethiopia Airlines bid for new national carrier. How 49% ownership controlled by foreign interests will rob Nigeria on Bassa Road. Stakeholders, it is another private interest masquerading as national carrier. Project to mimic Virgin Nigeria's mistake. You can see that on page 6. Mental disorder, our economic and security uncertainties, COVID-19 full numbers. Lessons of hashtag EndSARS not learned 2 years on, citizens tell federal government. You can see that on page 6. Christian Association of Nigeria President disassociates self from APC presidential campaign list. Tragedy as 10 die, 5 vehicles burnt in Ogun tanker explosion. And lastly, on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, we have Alaba market leaders confirm 3 deaths, 28 injured persons in clash with Agbirus. And you can see that on page 13 of the Nation newspaper. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. Join us after the break.
We don't want to make anybody make this movement saying that political anything, no be campaign, no be anything. And we don't want there, we just block road for everybody. So these coffins were there. More carry these coffins, more carry them go Toll Gate. These coffins are very symbolic. Now here we they kill our people. So we go drop this coffin for them, make them get out. Let them get out. So I beg, more carry these coffins, go drop out for the Toll Gate now. Let's go, let's sing along. Solidarity.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I'm Damilola Ogunshaki. Joining me to analyze the front pages of the dailies this morning is Mr. Oludari Mayowa. He's a publisher, Global Financial Digest. Good morning, Mr. Mayowa.
Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning.
Yes, all right. Let's move straight to what we're discussing this morning. Of course, we are talking about the hashtag #EndSARS protest. Yesterday was 20th October. Of course, the people are just, talking about what happened 2 years ago. That was 2022. Of course, this is the second anniversary. And yesterday, the protesters, as expected, moved to the Lekki Toll Gate to protest. And also, they were demanding for justice. But still, what surprised many of them is the fact that police tear-gassed these protesters. What do you think about this action from Nigerian police?
Thank you very much. First of all, the yesterday protest was a memorial, just a remembrance kind of a thing to demonstrate. It's very symbolic, right, in the sense that the youth are not forgetting what happened in 2022, and they are trying to bring it to our memory that we are not forgetting what happened, and there's no closure yet because up to today, the government still denying that there were deaths occurred during this period. Up to today, the panel that was set up, committee that was set up to investigate the incident submitted their report, and no implementation has been done so far. And like you have said yesterday too, we have seen the police at their element, doing tear gas and the rest to disperse the protester. These are the sign of underdevelopment, because the Nigerians youth generally we have right to protest, make as long as not violent. What the duty of the police was to guide them to protest for turning to violence, and that's what they ought to have done yesterday by throwing tear gas and forcing that to force people out the road. Is a signal that we are not learning any lesson from the NSAS protest, and the police has not really have a change of mind. Nothing has happened to the police force in the last 2 years. Time of reform, time of reorientation, we are still seeing the evidence of their brutality, because throwing tear gas to testing group is a sign of brutality, because they are trying to force them to do their will. And this government should actually need to re-examine this thing. What have we learned from the incident that happened 2 years ago? We have not learned anything, because the government has not taken ground. They have not accepted that there's a crisis. They have not accepted that there was killing. They have not accepted that they have not carried out any major reform in the police. They just changed the name of SARS to SWAT. So they have not really deep-rooted reform in the police force. And they have that was what they demonstrated yesterday by shooting a bullet in the air, throwing tear gas to the crowd. It shows that the government has not done anything, and there won't be any closure if there's no reform. If the government has not responded to the calling and the yelling of the populace, especially youth who have been harassed. In the last 1 year, we have seen footages of police harassing, checking people's phone at the checkpoint, harassing people in so many. element that the essence represent to protest again. We are still seeing them all around us today. So that means government, the present government has not learned any lesson. They're not seeing the importance of that protest, that the people are yearning for change in the system, and they ought to begin to implement those changes right now to assuage the feelings of people who are hurt, to in the memory of those who lost their lives during the protest.
But yesterday, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Senator Yusuf Dati Baba Ahmed, says it's not certain if there was a massacre at the Lekki Toll Gate in Lagos. But of course, he knew of human rights violations and, of course, abuses, but not massacre.
Yeah, it's very controversial. What massacre means massive killing.
Yeah.
That means there could be more than 10, 20, mass killing of people. We may not have had massive killing at Lekki Toll Gate, but obviously, from all the reports, all the investigation, there are killings that night, 2020. So there are evidence of killing. It may not be massacre, so to say. But government need to accept that there are killing, that the military that brought to that place, the people that they misuse, abuse their force, abuse their power in shooting live bullets into the crowd. That must be established by the government, and that was what will bring closure to some of these pains, hunting, and the rest. Yes, like I agree with the very people of LP that may not be massacre. But massacre is about massive killing that not to hundreds of or tens of deaths. But there are people who are killed at that scene, or that there are evidence that many people were killed in that place that night, and that must be accepted by the people. And that people are right to abuse to protest. They have the right to protest. They were lawfully protesting, sitting down in protest, and it was wrong for the military or the police to shoot live bullets into the crowd. And some people have to be sanctioned, people have to be punished for misdemeanor. Otherwise, we continue to see this happening day in, day out in our country.
All right, let's move away from that and talk about this. So in 2021, SB Morgan Intelligence released a statistic that put the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria at 12.3 million. Now, the latest data of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, says the current number is 20 million. And even the one of 2021, the federal government of Nigeria, they were poking holes into that statistics. Now we have 20 million out-of-school children. What do you have to say about this?
In my own view, I think we have more than that out of school children in this country. When against the backdrop of what is happening around us, the security around us, look at the northeast. Boko is still occupying so many spaces in those regions. In Zamfara, for example, the government has declared some local government closed because of banditry, terrorism, and the rest. And look at what recently happened. The flood all over the place. Many people will not be in school today. For example, in Delta, in Bayelsa, in Kogi, and Nasarawa, and many other parts of the country that are ravaged by flood. These are out of school children. In places where the bandit kidnapping and terrorists are raining, without any check. There are people who are out of school. Those schools that their children the students were kidnapped and they have not been returned back to their family. These are children that are out of school. So for me, the figure might be higher than that. What we are seeing today. If you go by what we have today, we have IDP all over the country today, where people are staying in the camp, they can't go back to their ancestral home. So would they be going to school in the IDP, or people who are displaced, who are not in their homes, who are displaced from their ancestral home? Would they be going to school? There is no school for those people. So we have to face, the government has to face the reality on the ground, and that is the reason why they have to. It is when they face the reality, they can devise measure to stop this, to arrest the threat. And if you have millions of your children out of school, what is the future for this generation? What is the future for this country? These are the facts on the ground that government need to work on to ensure that to reverse the trend.
But looking at the reality on ground, I mean, we see children outside every day, those hawking when their mates are in school, and also some of the children begging. I mean, the federal government is still poking holes into the statistics. So do you think there's something wrong really in it?
Yeah, politicians, they always want to deny everything. This is why they are denying, because it has a negative impact on their image, on their policy. They are told that they are spending so much money to feed children in school, for example. If 20 million children are out of school, where is the money they are spending on school feeding going to them? So these are the reasons why they are denying some of these things. There are so many investments in schools, provisions of textbooks and the rest. But yes, many children are out of school. So where are this money going to? This is exactly why the reason why the government officials are denying the situation on ground. But for a government who love the people, they need to really accept the circumstances around us. Today, for example, the talk of Lagos, even in Lagos, there are so many children out of school because of high inflation. Many families today cannot feed themselves. So they have to send their children to go and hawk on the street so they can bring money home so that the family can eat. And these children are out of school. There are many people today, the high cost of transportation in Lagos alone has stopped a lot of people from going to school. Because you can see somebody living in Surulere and go to school in Itire, or living in Ojuleba and go to Itire, go to school in a far away place. You have to enter transport. And because of the high cost of transportation today, many parents could not afford to send their children to school. So these are factors that militate against people going to school in this country. These are the factors that are preventing, that are increasing the number of out of school children. I'm going to really examine this statistic and genuinely show concern and genuinely be to see where all the budgetary allocation for school, for infrastructure, for feedings and the rest, where are the money going to? Going to private pockets. That's what it means. And because they don't want to accept this, that's why they are making denial. And it's a wrong for the government to do, because we know it's very stark, very clear to everybody that there are many children out of school today. You can see them on the street.
All right,
see them everywhere.
With the economic situation in Nigeria, do Nigeria government have the power to take the children out of the streets?
Yeah, it's an intentional thing. It's a deliberate policy on the part of the government to ensure, because that's the future of this country. The future of the country depends on education. How you educate your children. If you don't educate them, then the future is bleak. Right now, we are having massive migration out of this country. People are relocated out of this country. Skilled people. And we are not stopping that. So we are going to replace them in their workplace. Today, so many banks are having challenges in terms of their IT, because the key staff in those places are resigned and looking to UK, to US, Canada, and Australia, and the rest. And how do we intend to replace this manpower that we are losing to foreign country? It's for education. By educating our children to give them right education, quality education, that's how we can replace those manpower. People are resigning, people are going to retire from 2000 this year, many across the nation. How do we replace them in the workplace? And until we educate our people, we don't have skilled manpower to deploy. And if you don't have skilled power to deploy, the economy is going to deteriorate, because we don't have capacity to manage the economy, to manage our industry, to manage our commerce and all the rest. So this is the reason why government has to take it very seriously and to look holistically at the factors militating against children going to school and how to address them. We have to face the reality today. Otherwise, the future for this country is big.
All right, let's move away from that. The former resident electoral commission of INEC in Akwa Ibom State, Mike IGINI, said yesterday that 2023 election will not be business as usual for politicians, as they may find it difficult to rig the election with the new electoral act that was signed into law. Do you agree with this statement?
I just see it as a dream. It's not supported by reality on the ground. Yes, INEC has said they have integrated their system into technology in such a way that it will be very difficult for people to rig the election, for strangers to vote, for other people to vote. These are yes, but we understand Nigerian politicians. I remember some years back, one of the MD of a bank were engaged in interview. He said each time the CBN roll out a policy concerning banking, say already banks are looking at that policy and are looking at how to sidetrack it. They are looking at the loopholes in those policies and how to sidetrack it, and they work it out without violating the rules. The same thing with politicians. As you are rolling out those technology, as you are rolling out those measures to tie them from rigging the election, they are equally researching on how to circumvent those systems. And we are seeing it happen. They are deploying money, they are buying votes, they are buying PVCs, they are buying people to vote. These are riggings. You know, they are manipulating. As long as you have people behind this system you are talking about, definitely there's going to be some measure of circumvention. You can't take for granted the capacity of our politicians for mischief.